This is a true story. This is a story about the last time that I tried to ride a horse. I'm going to write this story down for probably 25 years, but inspired by an old country poet that I watched just recently. I decided that perhaps it would be a good one to write down as a poem. I learned a lesson that day, that when you get ready to ride anything, be it a horse, motorcycle, a bicycle, or just anything, when you sit down in the seat or sit in that saddle and you stretch your feet out toward the ground, if you can't plant those feet firmly on the ground, then the best thing you can do is to simply not ride. This story is entitled The Ride, and it goes like this. It was a cool spring morning when I decided that I could ride. I didn't know jack about horses, but I couldn't let my pride stop me from playing cowboy and showing off a little bit. Just cause that old horse didn't want to be caught wasn't going to make me quit. So I found a rusty bucket and filled it up with some sweet feed. While that old horse started following me around, it must have been just the deed. We slipped the bridle on his head, never mind that it didn't have a bit. After all, we ain't gonna run, plans are to just walk and sit. The stirrups on the saddle were way too long for my feet to reach, but the toes of my boots would be plenty for only a lesson to teach. So I tried to climb into the saddle like I knew just what to do, but that old horse was having none of it. He already knew that he was through. Then a better rider was able to calm that old contrary equine down. That gave me a new determination that I could ride, that I somehow found. Then another buddy led that horse around with me just sitting in the saddle. Felt kind of like riding in a boat without so much as a paddle. That horse seemed good enough as he'd adjusted to me on his back. Was then I took the reins so I could guide him without any slack. Off we go for a walk, this brand new cowboy and horse team. That's when he stopped just walking and gathered up some steam. I calmly pulled back on the reins and whispered a little whoa, but that old horse must have misheard me and thought that I said go. About this time's when I learned why there's a need to plant your feet, as they began to swing wildly as I bounced up off the seat. With each new leap that horse made, I was kicking him in the flank. He was running at the speed of light, just like we had robbed a bank. My yells for him to stop didn't seem to be reaching his ears. As I began to think about dying, that was my current fears. It was time to get off that speeding train as quickly as I could. Had to think about Roy Rogers and Trigger and exactly how Roy would. So I slid off that saddle, got both feet to just one side. Plans were to jump free, to hell with my damaged pride. But my head hit the saddle as I fearlessly jumped free. So much for being a cowboy on a tough man riding spree. With me on the ground, that old horse decided to be my friend. It's a simple wonder that they weren't calling my next of kin. I didn't even know what name that horse went by, a fact that now seems really rich. I thought that I'd been calling him by his name when yelling, "Whoa, you son of a bitch."